the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
All right, hello. Welcome back. Chase Thomas Podcast, taping this on a Tuesday morning. We've got Locked On Vols Volquest own Eric Cain is here. Eric, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here, sir. This is look, we have some baseball stuff that we're going to get to here because baseball season, as we talked about before we got started, is coming up very quickly. We'll be sitting out at Lindsey Nelson Stadium in the cold here sooner rather than later for a game that we know Tennessee's going to win, but we are going to watch intently and freeze our tails off because that is the start of college baseball season. It's like, who amongst us is ready to spend 2.5 hours for Georgia State, Tennessee? Only a few of us, and Eric Cain and myself are one of the few in the crowd.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of people that'll pack the stadium. Of course, I mean it's just amazing. I've only covered the team for 3 or 4 years total altogether, and every day on the beat for the last 2 seasons, and just seeing like being around the stadium and 18, 19, and these February, March non-conference games. And then now it's like, I mean, it's just packed house, sold house. Into February it's 47 degrees, 45 degrees, and there's sleet going, and I mean there's can't keep people away.
Absolutely. It's a good problem to have. To have. It'll be a weird year though with the construction and everything else. It's going to be an interesting type year, but it's going to be fun. The final product is going to be pretty good stuff.
I still have no clue where we're going to sit in terms of the press box. I seriously have no clue. Oh crap! I don't know. I was trying to share something on my screen here, but anyway, I can't do it. But it's that picture of the construction workers sitting on the steel in New York City. When That's how I think that me and Ben and Mike and Shump and everybody are going to be this year covering Tennessee baseball.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, man. Let me just go ahead and tell you, I'll be on my couch, my laptop, my notepad. I watch it like Ryan Russillo. I watch Tennessee sporting events like I'm Russillo. But Eric Cain, we are going to talk some football here before we get into a couple of different baseball questions I want to pick your brain on. But with it being the 2025, I know y'all did some coverage on this over at volquest.com. Make sure you go subscribe today if you're not already. But about like wish lists for 2025 for Tennessee football. And one of the things I'm curious about from your vantage point is if you could have one wish granted for the 2025 Tennessee football team, what would it be?
One wish granted. Couple different things I'd like to see happen.
You got to pick one though. It's got to be one wish.
If I could do one, and this is why, it would be beat Florida in the swamp towards the end of the season. Okay, because I think that game is going to be you win, you're in. You lose, you're out. I think Tennessee's going to be teetering right around that playoff brink. Georgia early in the season obviously is going to be such a tough battle. Alabama on the road. Tennessee, of course, we know the road woes. But Tennessee hasn't won in the swamp since 2003. It's been forever. And every time Tennessee goes down there, it's like a house of horrors. And because it is on the brink of the end of the season right there in front of Vanderbilt, I think that's going to be a play-in game for Tennessee. Of course, you got to beat Vanderbilt. But beating Florida on the road, kind of snapping that streak, winning a big-time road game and a game that I think can punch your ticket to the playoffs potentially, that'd be mine.
I like that. And I mean, I think it's one of those things you just jot down now of like, hey, I think this might end up being something that matters at the end of the year, is flipping when we play Georgia and Florida. Because, I mean, you mentioned last time you won in Gainesville was 2003, but that year when 9/11 happened, that was 2001. That was the first time you won there in a while, and that was with Casey Clausen in December 1st, I think, was when that game was played. So, I mean, the early season trips to Gainesville have not gone well. So maybe Florida, because I think part of it is like Florida's seasons hadn't torpedoed at that point, and there's a lot more optimism in Gainesville early in the year when you're playing in the swamp. But
here's the thing: take 2024 season, right? You wanted to play Florida when you played them, because if you played them in November, that'd be tough, right?
Maybe, I don't know. Lagway was kind of up and down. I still like Lagway, but a true freshman. It's as long as Tennessee, the bar is just so high in Knoxville. I would agree with you if it was in Gainesville, but I mean, he's lost one home game in the last 3 years. So until Heupel drops one of these, because like I've circled Oklahoma this year as the one that, like, if there was going to be an upset for Tennessee at home, in 2025 for the first time in a while. It'd probably be John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle, and what Oklahoma has done remaking that offensive side of the ball. Like, I think John Mateer is a really good quarterback, and we've seen how running true dual threat quarterbacks have given Tennessee problems. So I think that's a possibility I've circled, but until Heupel and Tennessee drop a game they shouldn't in Neyland, I'm just not going to go there. But in terms of Florida for Tennessee, it's a big one. Like, if you get over that middle hump, because these three are the final three middle humps for Heupel at Tennessee, right? It's not just like you've beaten Florida and Alabama both times at home, but at Gainesville, like, it's been, I mean, worse than at Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa, you've been in every game. Like, you should have beaten Bama in Tuscaloosa with Saban in 23. If you convert one of those red zone field goals into a touchdown, you're up 3 scores instead of what you were, where Alabama has one big play to start the second half and they're right back in it back within a touchdown. You're like, man, we really, really did not finish as strong as we should have in that first half to give them no hope. Because if they go in 3 scores down, I just don't think Alabama comes out with that same kind of fire. Like, we're one play away from getting right back in this. So I don't know. They played in Tuscaloosa really well. That's a winnable game to me. I don't know if you feel the same.
No, and like, I mean, no disrespect, but I mean, going on the road to Florida and going on the road to Alabama are 2 completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like the atmosphere is bad at Tuscaloosa, but it is not the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
It is not between the hedges. There have been louder environments outside of the big 3, or the other 2 of the big 3 than Alabama. Like, again, it's not easy. Clearly, Tennessee's not won there in a while, but it's doable. And I completely agree. That 2023 season, you convert, one more touchdown outside of the field goal. If you just show up and have a pulse in the second half, I mean, how easy is it to win that football game? You were right there, and I mean, what a start in that football game. I think winning big games on the road obviously is one of those things that he's got to overcome. Beating Georgia, just in general, right? I mean, we can worry about beating Georgia down there at some point, but just beating Georgia's the only one that he's not had any success against. He's had success, as you mentioned, against Alabama twice, Florida twice. Some of these other big games, throughout the course of the SEC schedule the last couple of years, but Georgia's not been one of those. So you've got to win a big road game. If you're going to win the conference, if you're going to, be a national championship caliber team, you've got to win on the road. And Tennessee's, I mean, I did the math the other day. I got it written down somewhere. I think it's like 8-11. Don't quote me. I think it's like 8-11 true road games for Heupel since he's been here. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. So for as dominant as you are at home, and that's important. That's very important. If you want to be a championship team, you got to win those on the road. And I think this year coming out specifically with on the road at Florida, on the road at Alabama, are much more important games, in my opinion, than week 3 against, or week whatever it is, against Georgia at home. Huge game. If you drop that game against the Bulldogs, boy, you have time to make up for it, right? It's like nobody cares about Notre Dame's loss in Northern Illinois or, whatever, way back when. They're playing for a national title now. So that's why I think it's so important.
I think if I'd rank them in terms of most likely for Tennessee, I'd probably go 1 at Alabama, 2 Georgia at home, 3 at Florida.
In terms of wins?
Yeah, in terms of wins.
I agree with Alabama. I said that in the Monday Night Chat, I think, the other night. I agree with Alabama. Yeah, Georgia's roster is still just so good. I understand what they're losing and kind of where they are. I'll do a more deep dive into, their roster after the transfer portal additions and all that. But I still think that roster is really, really good. I just think the Florida on the road is so tough. And I'm with you. I mean, Lagway, had a lot of highs when he came in this year, and I think he's going to be such a good player. I do think that he's a bit overranked. I mean, I've already seen some quarterback rankings, and we did that on my show the other day. 2025 quarterback rankings, SEC. Like, some of these lists, I see him at number 2 already. Like, okay, let's slow the roll a little bit. Like, top 5, sure, I agree. Nussmeier's number 1 at LSU. I mean, there's some other good ones that are coming back, but Lagway was still up and down as a true freshman last year, but I think he's going to be really, really good. Having said all that, what they bring back in the backfield, they're still going to have the wide receiver who's really, really good. Trey, I'm forgetting his last name.
Wilson.
Yeah, Trey Wilson the third, Eugene Wilson the third. I need to find out what they are on the line of scrimmage. I don't know Florida like I know Tennessee, but on the road in November, I think that's going to be a challenge. I kind of agree with that. Maybe flip-flop Florida and Georgia, but I have no issues with Alabama, Georgia, Florida in that order.
You've been competitive against Florida, at least at home. You haven't been competitive against Georgia in the second half. Like, you've been shut out the last 2 times. Like, it's the thing with me with Georgia. is, and probably what scares me the most about getting over that final Georgia hurdle, is when you go into next year with a youth movement. There's just no way around there not being a youth movement at receiver for Tennessee. These are young guys, and you know how Georgia defends, and their corners, they're physical. They just dominate Tennessee receivers. They just have dominated them the last 4 years. And unless we see a huge flip, and it's possible, like you have a bunch of blue chippers now who are going to get the opportunity to make a name for themselves, highlighted by Mike Matthews, and we'll see with Braylon Staley and guys. But like, until we see consistent separation from Tennessee wideouts in Georgia games, Tennessee can't win when they don't have chunk plays with the wide receiver position. If you look at the Georgia game, I think Miles Kitselman led Tennessee in receiving that game last year. If Miles Kitselman leads Tennessee in receiving any game this year, Tennessee lost that game. Like, that's just, it's not an indictment on Miles, because Miles is doing what he can. He's solid. But that's just, this offense doesn't work that way. Like, this offense does not thrive. And I mean, you're 94th in passing in SEC play this year. Like, the passing game was in a SEC play an abject disaster. And until that changes and they show it, and it's going to be early, so they're going to have that opportunity, and being at home will help. I just think the Georgia thing is just really, really, I got to see it to believe it, because the receiver position has to win in a way against these Georgia corners. And they bring back Dalen Everett, who's a really good player, could have gone to the NFL. He'll be on one side, and then you have the number 1 overall corner from that class, and Ellis Robinson on the other side, who's in year 2 of the program. Like, all right, we'll see. We'll see if they can win one-on-one when they do press man against these young Tennessee wideouts. But until Tennessee wins in space like that and frees things up for chunk plays on the outside, like, I don't think they can beat Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like, it's one of those you got to believe it to see it type situations. And you're exactly right. The physicality on the perimeter. I mean, back in 2022, like, I mean, Tennessee was obviously good that year and obviously super competitive and all that. But it's like you got to Georgia, and I'm not saying this was the mindset, but it was kind of like, oh boy, look, we're here playing this big game. Everybody in the country is watching us right now. We have not arrived, but we're back essentially and playing in these types of games. And then you get blitzed. And I mean, those corners just absolutely demolished Tennessee's wide receivers. And it was the same a little bit this year. And another thing, outside the perimeter play, and I think Tim Banks did a fantastic job this year. And I think he's going to be Tennessee's defensive coordinator next year. I think they're going to get that done here in the next week or so, in my opinion, or before the end of the contract running out. But I think he was fantastic this year. I think he had a really, really bad game, against Georgia. I think 2023 at Florida, I think he had a really bad game plan. You saw Mike Bobo scheme up some stuff to get one-on-one on another guy that was fantastic this year for Tennessee, and Will Brooks. But Will Brooks has limitations. Mike Bobo schemed up to get to Will Brooks, and they just ate. And what's your in-game adjustment, right? I mean, I'm not a football coach. I like to think I know football. I played football and all that, but I mean, who doesn't think they know football, right? I'm not a coach. What's your in-game adjustment? Why are you not mixing some things up? According to Pro Football Focus, Tennessee blitzed 39% of the time against Georgia. Did not feel that way in real time or when a rewatch. Against Ohio State, I think it was 31 dropbacks. Tennessee blitzed, gosh, I want to say 7 times. I mean, that is not good enough. Like, in-game adjustments, you've got to switch some things up in those big-time games, or those coordinators, Chip Kelly, Mike Bobo, are just going to continue to scheme it up. And that's what was disappointing for me in those big games this year. You got some talent. Ohio State, you never showed up. But Georgia, I mean, you had a great first quarter, right? I mean, you had a great start. Just like Alabama 2023, you had a great start. You got to sustain it. And that's what separates the good teams from, the great teams and the championship-winning teams. So, that's something as well. And the perimeter, go back to that conversation, like, where's Bradsell next year, man? Like, he was a bit of a disappointment this year, but as we've seen, second year in the system, sometimes that helps. Dante Thornton if he could have stayed healthy, he would have been a 1,000-yard receiver this year. He was much, much better. Hopefully Bradsell takes that step. Mike Matthews has got to take off. Travis Smith, where's Amari Jefferson? Some of these younger guys, you've got to be physical on the outside because Cedric Tillman's not here on one side. Brew McCoy's gone on the other. Jalen Hyatt, nobody has his speed in the slot where you can literally just run by anybody that's trying to guard you, even if they're in press. You don't have that. So you got to figure it out, right? And Tennessee's got to take that step for sure.
But that's what makes it fun. It's like, I don't have a definitive answer here. I have some thoughts on which way it's going to go. But like, I do think the most exciting part about the offense is that you and I can have our theories and our expectations and assumptions, but it's the most uncertain it's ever been in the Heupel era. I mean, at running back, on the offensive line, at receiver, at quarterback.
I'll say this though. I'll say this. You're right. I agree. It's the most uncertain in terms of kind of where are you and who are you, right? And it's like you have an identity, but boy, you haven't been hitting on that identity really in like a year and a half. But I will say this about the run game: you're missing Dylan Sampson. He's NFL guy, great guy. Tennessee's rushed for 2,500 yards or more in 4 straight years with Heupel. That's never been done in Tennessee history.
Yeah.
Tennessee ran for the second most yards last year in modern history, most since 1951. Dylan Sampson's great, and I'm not taking it away. Tennessee can run the football, I think, with whoever.
Well, when you have it's the light boxes and the wide splits. Like they're always going to have like that success. I just meant more in terms of like Sean Bishop has not been able to stay healthy for the last 2 years, and he's going to be one of your 2 important guys. And Peyton Lewis obviously was banged up coming to Tennessee. It can just get very dicey in a hurry in terms of bodies. Like that's my main thing. It's like anyone who's like worried about Nico and his jump, I'm like, Nico's going to have to, because Nico's going to have to run a lot more than he did this past year, and he's ran a lot down the stretch. But it's also like it's going to have to be more passing. It's going to have to be closer to like we're putting the ball more in Nico's hands to make plays downfield and throw guys open and do other stuff. Like there has to be more on his plate because the safety valve and the consistency of Dylan Sampson, especially in the second half, is just not there. And these guys, like I like Peyton Lewis, I like Deshaun Bishop, I like DeJuan Morris coming in, but I mean you're thin there. You are you were the most thin you've been at that position, I guess, since 2021.
2021, you had a walk-on running back playing snaps against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that situation again. 2023, was it 23 when they tried to bring in the kid from that got kicked out?
Oh yeah, Lynn J. Dixon.
Yes, and I believe, don't quote me, but I believe they had 4 scholarship running backs that season. And we're all sitting here like, oh my gosh, what's going on? It turned out to be okay. All right. But you don't want to be in that situation. That's why Tennessee, in my opinion, is trying to find a running back. And if they find a running back, he's going to be a guy that comes in and plays a little bit. Now, in this era that we're in, you're not going to go pay, you're not going to go pay $500,000 for a guy that's going to split carries. That's just not, that's not good business sense, right? So I understand the frustration with Tennessee being slow and not active as much as everybody wants to in the portal. But you're at a point where, sure, you want to add, evaluate. There's been some guys Tennessee wanted, no doubt, but chose not to come here, and that's part of it. There's also been some guys Tennessee's passed on, and you've just got to be smart about this because you are, with the resources you're using to retain your roster, and Tennessee did a pretty dang good job of that, retaining your roster. You had a lot of guys, you had like 10 guys into the portal that, Squirrel White was a productive player. I wish him well. I think he's replaceable. I do. Holden Stays, good player. Miles Kitzman, Ethan Davis, they're staying. So good luck. Holden Stays. The rest, I mean, they're rotational guys, and they can be, replaced is what I'm trying to say. And so you spend all those resources retaining your roster. It's not monopoly money, right? And so I think Tennessee's been selective. I think Tennessee's got to be selective, and you got to be smart in some of these decisions to where, again, you're not going to pay $500,000 for a guy to come in and split carries. That just doesn't make sense. But anyway, I do think they're trying to find another running back. And if they do, I think it's going to be more of a work share, Lewis, Bishop, and maybe Morris or said running back from the portal that are going to kind of carry that load a little bit. Completely off topic. I'm sorry, but it kind of got me thinking about those in-game adjustments I was talking about on defense again a moment ago. Offensively, that's what this offense is. You said a moment ago, wide splits. At points in times this year, man, you couldn't protect Nico, and Nico is struggling, okay? And, like, I'm just sitting here, and I'm like, I understand what the offense is, but goodness, just scoot those splits down a little bit. Help your guy out. Not have him sit back there and wait for the dig to come open or wait for the post to come open. You scoot those slants in there, speed up the clock a little bit, help your quarterback. They're just so unwilling to make any of those adjustments. But in terms of the wide receiver splits, I think that's something that they probably never will, to your point.
I wouldn't hold my breath on that one, Eric. I think it is what it is at this point. But I'm very curious what new wrinkles Heupel does. Like,
how many times did Ohio State throw to the running backs this year? A crap ton.
I mean, Travion Henderson had like a 75-yard touchdown run or touchdown catch, like just that little wheel route out of the backfield. And
watch these wild card games this year. I mean, they throw to the running backs. There's nothing wrong with the check down. There's not, and so many times that check down's just not even there. It's like, and they're staying in there to help block a little bit, and I get that. But man, you've got to have a check down. You've got to involve the backs in the backfield. Check down, wheel route, little arrow.
Feels like that was Kitzelman and Stays a little bit this year. Their check down is the tight end.
Yeah. And I think you need to be involved to get those guys more active in the passing game for sure.
Yeah. Final football thing for you. Who do you think right now, who's your guy that you think no one's really talking about going into 25, who you think will play a lot more snaps than people are anticipating?
Snaps. Like a linebacker, I think a bunch of those freshmen that they just signed are going to play. So I think we're kind of talking about that a little bit. We know that William Satterwhite's probably going to have to play. Like he's a leader in the clubhouse at center. Spring, we'll see what happens. We know David Sanders is going to play. I'll go Edrees Farooq at safety. They like him a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know the situation and why he was in the football game on the goal line in Athens. I'm not sure why. He played like 4 snaps that game. That was one of them.
Yeah.
But point is, I mean, they put him in the football game, and he was kind of that next man up whenever Christian Charles went down with injury. Like a skill set, like the fact that he can pack a punch. I think he's good in space, just about getting reps and all that. And I think that with Will Brooks leaving and you bring back Thomas and Charles and Turrentine, you're going to need a fourth for that rotation. I think Farooq could be that guy, and I think that he's probably got the highest ceiling of that group. So I think Edrees Farooq is going to be a guy that's going to make a name for himself defensively for Tennessee in 2025.
I like that one, and I think him and Jacoby kind of have a mirroring skill set a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just 2 heavy hitters. Like, there's 2 instances I can think off the top of my head for both of them. I mean, they come in flying, and I think if you rotate, because I think a lot of people are like, wait. I don't know why fans are kind of out on Christian Charles a little bit. I thought he played really well.
Here's the thing. Like everybody remembers Christian Charles as the cornerback in 2022, and he's not a corner, and he was playing out of position. They were just trying to find athletes. They were just trying to make it work, right? He's not a corner. He's always been a safety. He came here as a safety. He played as a safety in 21, got hurt. Corner in 22, didn't play 23 essentially. I thought he played about 275 snaps this year. Finally ran. He was hurt all year long. He's always hurt. Played through it, couldn't play through it the last couple of games of the year. But I'm with you, man. I thought he played pretty well. I thought he flashed. I thought he showed up. And, I mean, Will Brooks is the best safety, and no fans wanted Will Brooks to play. He was absolutely the best safety this year, and it wasn't even close. I thought Christian Charles was pretty good, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have guys, and we'll see if John Slaughter factors in too a little bit next year. But I think you're getting more athletic in the back end there, and I think you're gonna have options, and you're gonna rotate more. Like, I just don't think it's like you saw that this past year. Like, they're rotating at safety now. Like, it's not like the Jalen McCullough era where it's just gonna be a gargantuan amount of snaps for those 2 safeties. I don't think that's coming. And then Jordan Thomas, like ultimately what he looks like coming back. Is he a safety? Does he split with Christian Harrison now gone? Does he, and if Boo plays more offensive snaps, do you give Jordan more snaps at star to keep him fresh? I think that's a possibility. So I don't know. I'm not really worried. I'm not worried anywhere on defense. Like, nothing about the Tennessee defense is with this staff and everything else. Defensive line, it's going to be fine. Like Edge, Jordan Ross, Joshua Josephs, they're all going to be fine. Like, I'm not worried about the interior of the defensive line. Like, they're going to have body. Like, David Hobbs is going to step in. Like, the Jackson White. Like, they're going to be fine. I'm not really worried about any of that. Linebackers, I think they're going to have a lot of talent. Like, Spillman and Aaron Carter, I think, could be better than what you had this past year with a full, healthy offseason with Spillman and T. Lander. Like, I think they're going to be fine on linebacker. Corner, obviously fine, and maybe even better. I'm not worried about it. It's all offense, and it's so weird with an offensive coach. All my questions are on offense. Tennessee's going to have an elite defense again next year. I don't see any real concerns there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the defense. I'm so, as a football nerd and junkie like yourself, like I love seeing the secondary come together.
Yeah,
I love seeing the pieces they have back there. I love the fact that they're all so young at corner. I love the linebackers. I mean, they're young. They played a ton. They have some limitations, but you're right. Spillman, if he was healthy all year long, he would have played all year long.
Yes.
He would have played. Jaden Harmon, Christian Gass, depending on where they want to play Gass, I mean, those 2 guys are going to play as freshmen. We'll see if Jaden Perlotti gets in there as well. And then you're right. I mean, up front, Bryce Neeson's another guy in the interior that's going to come back, and obviously that's huge. Joshua Josephs, I think, could have a banner year. I think he's such a good player. And then on the other side, Dominic Bailey is going to come back as well. So, I mean, you're returning a lot of experience. You play a lot of guys up there. I'm with you. I think the defense is going to be fine. It's who's your center? Who are your guards? Can your
is Lance Hurd good? Is Lance Hurd good?
Yeah, is Lance Hurd taking a step? Can your true freshman hit the ground running? And David Sanders. I mean, so many questions right there on the offensive line. Who steps up a wide receiver? And more than anything, does Nico take that step from year 1 to year 2? He's got to. He was far from bad last year. He was far from being the number 1 overall player in the country. We can all agree on that. He's got to take a step, and that's the biggest question overall for anything we're talking Tennessee football. It's all about Nico, all about the quarterback, and we'll just have to see kind of where he is in August.
Speaking of, we got to see where we're at. little bit of a surprising news this week for Tennessee baseball, Eric. Alex Perry stepping away, and we wish him well. And he was somebody who I was really excited about this offseason because I think he obviously, as you know, he was in play for the shortstop position last year. He can rake. Like, he has good size, frame, and he just seemed like someone who was a natural star in waiting in a Vitello, Lindsey Nelson Stadium type feel. And he's not going to be on the team in 25 now. And I get you wrote about it this week over at VolQuest about like Dalton Bargo being either that in the Monday Night Chat. I don't remember which one, but it was Dalton Bargo and then Levi Clark, who everybody is really excited about too. And he's obviously a highly ranked true freshman coming in here. But you have options, and I'm a big Bargo guy, and he was someone who you weren't really sure where he was going to end up, and it was kind of the same last year. It was just like, play him, and I was someone who was like, I don't just let him DH every game. Like, let Bargo get comfortable DHing. I don't understand the DH rotation last year. Like, you won a title, so none of it mattered, but I would love to pick Tony's brain about what the DH, the never-ending DH rotation, because I'm like, I don't get it. But Bargo, I think, obviously is a good option at first base, but what do you make of Perry not being part of the team in 25 and where the Vols go at first base?
Yeah, like you said, wish him well for sure. Not going to be with the team. He's a guy that the teammates really enjoy being around. Tony Vitello loves him. You know, every coach has kind of got, loves them all. Players coach, probably never admitted, but like, every coach. Tony's no different. Tony's got some guys. Mm-hmm. Alex Perry was one of those guys. Even last year when he literally never played, he's banged up and everything. He's one of Tony's guys. And so Tony liked him a lot. And trying to find a place for him that made sense. Last year, everybody was looking for a shortstop in the 14 inning or 18 inning game against Virginia Tech and fall last year at Tuscan College. Alex Perry went off, had a really, really good game. And so kind of leaving fall, I was like, okay, well, Alex Perry, I think it's going to be in line to maybe at least start the season, maybe being an option at shortstop. And right before opening weekend, he got hurt. Dean Curley got hurt. And it was like everybody who was Antigua was already hurt. It was like everybody who was already an option is hurt. And so they had to slide Simo over there at short for a little bit. But, trying to find a spot for him. He's got a frame. He's a bigger guy. Okay. So he looks like a first baseman anyway. Blake Burke was gone, getting drafted in the first round by the Brewers. Tennessee's trying to find a first baseman. Dalton Bargo, probably the favorite in the clubhouse, before fall last summer, now probably always the favorite in the clubhouse, but he got banged up a little bit in fall. And so he was out of commission. So it really gave Alex Perry an opportunity to show like, hey, I can fill in here. Hey, I can play here. Hey, I can compete here. And he did really well. There were some growing pains along the way and all that, but I thought he did a pretty good job. Yeah. With the stick in his hands there at the plate, he's fine. Wish him well. Like, is Tennessee missing an awful lot? I mean, this no disrespect. I don't think so, because he's never been a player for you. He's never been a contributor for you. And so now you have Bargo at first base. If that doesn't work out, or if you're, banged up, or if you need a different look, you have that forced change. We're talking about on the offensive line right now, forced change, receiver, forced change. Levi Clark's going to have to play. Stone Lawless, who's going to play a hand in catching games this year, along with Cain and Peebles, he can play first base as well. There's a couple other guys as well that can fill in there, but Levi Clark's going to be a good one. Levi Clark and Dalton Bargo are very similar in terms of, well, Bargo's got more versatility with his glove, but it's the bat. Clark, it's all about the bat. It's where can I play him defensively? And the bat can play. I think if Levi Clark was your DH for 62 games this season, he'd do just fine. It's, can you play left field? Can you catch? Can you play first base? But he played a little first base in fall, and I think he's trying to get used to that as well. So I'm excited for more opportunities for Levi Clark this year. Wish Alex Perry the best for sure. He was very much in contention to be the starting first baseman this year, but I think it's always been Bargo's job, and I don't think nothing really changes with this news.
Something I've been wondering about, like you brought up Stone Lawless. There's a lot of buzz about Stone too, Eric. If you had to guess between, because like Cain and Peebles, I think we were all surprised that Cain and Peebles obviously did not have the 2024 season that he, I'm sure, wanted. Super talented kid coming out of NC State, but he did. I mean, it was Cal's job, and Cal ran with it and never gave it back.
Yep.
I mean, you have another talented guy behind you in Stone Lawless who is going to be pushing for opportunities. I mean, we've penciled in Cain and Peebles as the starting everyday catcher. I mean, do you think it's a possibility that we see more of a I don't know how to say this. Just more of a back and forth between Stone and Cannon early in the year, and this is a more true competition than I think folks might be anticipating.
I don't think alteration's a word. I just think it's simply alternating.
Did I just say alternate? Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Look, man, I've had 1 cup of coffee today, and it's just not enough at this point. I'm sorry. And also,
you sound like me trying to spew out nonsense on my show every single day. Trust me, I've been there.
We're both hosts, man. We're both natural play-by-play guys. Sometimes you understand my pain sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, dude, Stone Lawless he's a player. All right. If he didn't suffer that injury to his arm in high school, he'd have been drafted. Okay. He lost a lot of draft stock because of an injury in prep, and went for Tennessee, right? Got him to campus and all that. He's coming. And I think anyway, to your point about the alternating, I think that, right now I could see 4 games a week, 2-2, in my opinion. Stone gets 1 weekend, gets a Tuesday. Cannon gets 2 of the 3 on the weekend. If Stone's not producing and Cannon is, then, like Stark last year, maybe it's all you except for midweeks. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Stone Lawless, great reviews. Coaching staff's very impressed with him. His bat's coming along. Yeah, he's coming. So for Cannon, man, it's like, Tony got there in fall and said pretty much like, we asked him specifically about, I don't know, like, whatever position it was, maybe it was first base. And he's like, well, outside of Hunter Ensley and Cannon Peebles, we don't have any starters right now. So like Tony's already like, okay, Cannon's our guy. And everything Cannon did as a true freshman NC State at the plate, he didn't catch much. Everything he did in fall, everything he did in preseason, in January of last year. I mean, I was at some of those scrimmages, man. He hit like 2 home runs in the first 5 innings of one of the pizza series is what they call them, like the little 3-game series before the season starts. He was on fire. Season started. Yeah. It's just like it just went away, and it's the darndest thing. So the ability's there, man, and everybody knows what Cannon Peebles can do. And for him, about finding consistency, everyday opportunities, I think it's big for him as well, just to kind of get in that rhythm. So yeah, we'll see. But alternating, 2-2, 3-1, something like that. Stone's going to play this year, and if Peebles isn't ready, Stone's right there, and they're going to go with him. And he's also an option at first base too. Stone Lawless, has got a mid down there, and he can give you a look at first base too.
Final thing, I'll get you out of here, Eric. I think it's interesting that because like Andrew Fisher, I think we all agree he's just going to rake here. Like Andrew Fisher is going to rake it at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. I think there's a path to him hitting more home runs than Billy Amick at that spot a year ago. I think he's going to be more animated. I think they seem to have very different personalities. And Andrew Fisher just feels more like he just feels like a natural Tennessee guy. And I've thrown out that, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I think this 25 team, based on the personalities here, is going to be the closest we've seen to the 2022 team in a while. I think there's some ball villain coming back in this 25 team in a good way. Like that team was obviously great, but I think this is going to be interesting in that respect. But the one that no one really talks about right now, and it was kind of a big get at the time, was Gavin Kilen. And looks like he's going to be your everyday second baseman with Dean at shortstop. Obviously, Dean, I mean, I think he's going to be a superstar this year for you. Great stuff with Dean, great expectations. Andrew Fisher, you kind of know what he's going to be for you. But Gavin isn't really getting picked up. Like he's just going to be like, what do you think Gavin's going to be ultimately for 25? And do you think he could be more of a star than I think people are anticipating him coming over and doing?
Yeah, the forgotten man. You're 100% accurate in that statement. I mean, it's like he was like, I mean, on 3, and I think even Baseball America had him as like, number 1, number 2, number 3 in the transfer portal, like biggest gets and all that. And he's a guy that's just going to hit, man. He's going to push 330, okay, consistently. He's a guy that's just going to hit and hit and hit. He'll hit some power. I mean, he'll probably have double-digit home runs, probably 12, 15 or so, which is good. Hitting towards the top of the lineup, I can see him hitting 2. 2 I think makes most sense for him. 2 or 5, we'll see. But
strong Ozzy Albies vibes.
Yeah, so I think he's going to be really, really good. It's just you got the power. I think Dean Curley's going to have a big power season. I think he's going to hit in the heart of the order. Fisher is either going to hit 4 or 5. It's going to be. I think it's some combination of Kilen, Curley, Fisher 3, 4, or 2, 3, 4. Then maybe Inslee 5. I don't know, whatever it is, but he's going to be really, really good for you. And again, I respect this move in fall. We'll see. They're going to start scrimmages, every day inter squads next week and getting ready for the opener on the 14th of February. Curley never came off shortstop in fall. I mean, he was a true freshman, starting shortstop. Your team won a national championship. I mean, why, right? Don't mess with anything. He can play third base. He can play second base. There's versatility to Curley. If he struggles, slide Kilen over. Antiqua's also an option. We know how good he is defensively. If Fisher struggles in the hot corner, put him at DH, slide Curley over. There's so many different possibilities as well. But Keelan's versatility, middle infield, he played primarily all a shortstop at Louisville last year, played second base primarily the year before. I think he's going to be really, really good. And he's a guy that you're right, nobody's talking about right now. But in terms of being a hitter, on base, run scorer, I think that's going to be Gavin Kilen.
I love it. Eric, what can the good folks check out from you over at Locked On Vols and VolQuest.com this week?
Yep, a lot of recapping everything football related from the 2024 season, transfer portal news, recruiting, looking ahead to some of those position rooms for spring practice, all that and more, and a little baseball talk, just like you and I did here. Opening day is less than a month away. Looking forward to that, all that and more over on Locked On Balls.
I'm so ready for it. I don't care. I think because the games and everything else, it's fun when you're the powerhouse. I feel like Tennessee baseball is just like how Alabama football fans have felt for a really long time. You just go into every year we can win it all every single year that Tony Vitello is here.
Everybody keeps saying like what's more likely to happen, Omaha or Elite Eight or
it's Omaha. It's always gonna be Omaha.
And I never want to say Omaha because it is just, it is so hard to win and to continue winning in baseball. It's so hard, but it's like 3 of the last 4 years.
Yep.
It's like you can't not say Omaha now, right?
You enjoy it. You're the juggernaut. You're the Death Star of college baseball. And I don't know how long it goes for, but I'm going to enjoy every single weekend that Tennessee is a juggernaut in college baseball. So, Eric Cain, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Hey, Chase, thanks so much.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.